Welcome to another episode of the Building Bridges Gateway program, coming to you from A9 TV, beautiful city Istanbul. Our goal is to bring peace, love and brotherhood to all mankind, regardless of faith, race or nationality. Today we have a very distinguished guest, and I let my friend Oktar to introduce them now.
Yeah, we have two very distinguished guests, Matthew Van Dyke and Mrs. Nour Kelze, in our studios right now. Matthew Van Dyke, he's an American photographer, writer and documentary filmmaker. And Matthew Van Dyke fought against the regime of Muammar Gaddafi in the Libyan civil war as an American freedom fighter and soldier in the National Liberation Army. He was captured by Gaddafi's forces and spent nearly 6 months as a prisoner of war before escaping from Abu Salim prison and returning to combat until the end of the war. He currently works as an analyst focusing on the Arab world and security issues. Van Dyke received his master's degree in security studies from the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. He worked in North Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia for years as a journalist and documentary filmmaker and reported on the wars of Iraq and Afghanistan. He's working on a book and documentary film, is a guest on TV and radio, and frequently writes about the Arab Spring, revolutions and international security issues at his website, MatthewVanDyke.com. He also writes for the Freedom Fighter blog, which contains personal accounts of his ongoing mission to combat authoritarianism and analysis of current events.
Yes, and another distinguished guest is Nour Kelze, is from Aleppo, Syria, and she was an English teacher until she turned war photographer. She works for Reuters in Aleppo, and we are starting with questions.
Welcome. It's an honor and pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming. Yes, my first question will be to you, Matthew. Mm-hmm. It's very different for me to meet an American citizen who fought against Gaddafi and al-Assad for the people of Libya and Syria. It is very unusual. So how did this happen, and where did this idea to do this come from, and why do you feel responsible for fighting on behalf of the oppressed in Syria and Libya? It is unusual for an American to do. This is the first time we hear about that and fight on behalf of others. The last time I can think about was Spanish Civil War, probably.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, I am a citizen of America, but I'm also a citizen of the world. You know, and we're all on this planet together, and you know, we need to get along, and we can't leave people behind in the 21st century living under authoritarian governments. It doesn't make any sense. You know, we've put a man on the moon, but we still have people living under regimes like Gaddafi and Assad. You know, so I'll do what I can to help. As for Libya, I'd been in Libya years ago. I had many good friends in Libya. And when the revolution started, they told me what was happening to them and their friends and their family. And I decided that I couldn't just sit back and watch it happen to people I cared about. So I went and met up with one of my friends in Libya, joined the revolution. And in Syria, I went to Syria because I saw the success of what we accomplished in Libya, and I felt like we needed to export the revolution and continue. And they're like dominoes falling. So one regime falls, it encourages another people to rise up, knock down the other regime. I hope that one day, maybe by the time I have grandchildren, my grandchildren won't live in a world where there is any regime like this, that they'll only read about these things in history books. So I went to Syria to do what I can. I'll be working there till the end of the revolution, and that's where I met Nour.
Yeah. Yes, that's a noble way of thinking, of course. Yeah. And so it is important that actually good people coming together, this will generate force, and to bring an end to all what's happening, actually. And there is violence, terror everywhere, not only in Syria and Libya. Mm-hmm. We see all over the world that kind of problems. So it is everybody's actually obligation and responsibility, of course, to take care of what's happening. And it's good people coming together and doing through intellectual struggle will change the world. Not your grandchildren, but inshallah we will see a world full of peace and security and justice.
Yeah.
So,
hope so.
Yes.
Also, Ms. Nour, I would like to ask you to, because before I give you a question, but I wondered how did this idea occur to you to, for an English teacher to become war photographer, and what moved you in that direction?
Well, basically it's the regimes. Like, they were fighting press from the beginning. They did not allow journalists to enter and nobody knew what's going on. So basically I thought, like, this is my contribution to the revolution. This is how I can show the world what's going on. Like, people are dying in Syria. You need to realize that. You need to realize what's happening. So I just started doing this, and things happened.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
More sensitive.
And Matthew, maybe you can tell us about your documentary film about your time in Libya to our audience, if it's possible.
I have a film about my experiences in Libya, and also one about Syria. The Libya film is, I had a camera with me when I went to Libya. I had a camera after I escaped prison. I went back to the front line, and I filmed pretty much everything. In this film, I have a director, Marshall Curry, who's a successful documentary filmmaker in America. So we're doing the film together. That film will be out next year, possibly by the end of this year. And then I went to Syria to make a film in support of the revolution. And that's when I met Nour and put her in the film. Nour's also a producer on the film. That film is basically, it's a 15-minute short, and it's basically the struggle of the Syrian people, why they're fighting, what they're fighting for, what life is like, as told through the experiences of two characters, Nour and a man in the FSA, Malia. So I'm hoping that this film, the reason we did this film is to help organizations raise money for Syria and to help move public opinion away from some of the stereotypes in America. A lot of Americans think that the Syrian revolution is run by, you know, radical groups and these sorts of things. They've started to buy that fiction. So, you know, Nour is obviously not a part of any radical jihadist group. So I'm trying to show what the true face of the revolution is.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Very good.
So, Nour, can you tell us about the situation in Syria and how they are coping with the ongoing violence there and how they are managing to overcome the situation? Could you tell us that?
Well, Syrian people are really like brave. They find always a way to cope with the situation. It is hard. People are suffering. I have to admit that it's not easy at all. To like don't know if you're going to wake up after 10 minutes and that you're okay or your children are fine, or it's anticipate a jet that's gonna shell or mortar or whatever. And now to add up to it, the Scott missiles thing, it's like the worst right now, and people are really scared and afraid. Some people cannot afford to flee out of the country and go to another places. So it is becoming really terrifying. It is getting worse, and a lot of people are dying every day.
Yes.
So it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
Yeah, we can obviously see that. And,
Yeah.
Mr. Matthew, what do you think the future holds for the Middle East? What do you think?
I'm optimistic that all the regimes will eventually fall. You know, the future of the region's bright. There's a lot of issues. There'll be a lot of issues after the revolutions. In fact, the first revolution might not even get it right in some of these countries, and there might have to be another one. But, you know, I remain optimistic. You know, people after Libya, people said Libya will fall apart, Libya's a disaster, these sorts of things, ridiculous stuff. You ask pretty much any Libyan, they'll tell you life is better now than it was under Gaddafi, or that they're happier at least, that they have potential for a better future. But none of these transitions are ever going to be smooth. But no, I mean, you know, if the Middle East were a stock, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
Yes, Nour, in Syria, if it's said that if Assad falls and Al-Qaeda-backed Salafists would come to power in Syria, and they threaten to kill Christians and Alawites, what would be the situation likely be in Syria under these circumstances? What do you think about it?
No, never. I don't think like that.
That's right.
Because people like in Syria, I told you about the Syrian people. They were brave enough to like defy the Assad regime and his tyranny and all thing. So of course, what people want, they will get, and that's not what they want. To talk about Syria after the Assad is something really controversial, but it will be what the people want. Because basically the revolution is for the people to do and to get what they want. So they will not be satisfied until they get what they want.
Right, they're not going to spill all this blood and then have some group come and hijack their revolution. They would never tolerate it.
Yeah, it's very important that mentality has to change. It's if one group goes and another one comes, the situation will continue. There must be good result for everybody, not only in Syria and Libya.
Yes.
There are problems in Egypt, there are problems in Jordan, Tunisia, but everyone looks to see that kind of problems. So what do you think of the results of the Arab Spring from the following years will be Arab Spring?
I'm optimistic on the Arab Spring. I think it's a phenomenon that hopefully will inspire springs in other parts of the world as well. You know, a lot of things throughout history have started in the Middle East, and I think this is continuing that tradition. You know, I mean, you have regimes falling, you have democracies replacing them so far. So I'd call it a success.
Yeah. So we have the same hope. The world is changing. There were like dictatorships in the past. There were Ba'ath mentality regime. There were Marxism prevailing in Nasser time in Egypt. Gaddafi, the same thing. Saddam, as you know. And so we hope these things will change with good mentality, good morality will prevail the world, not only in Middle East. So coming together is very important in this issue also. And good in different countries coming together, like unity but independent, with independent countries, much better form of European Union, a spiritual union. And so the radicalism is a big threat, and bigotry is a big threat for the world, not only for Middle East, but for the world. So educating these people is very important.
Right.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And Matthew, please tell us about your solo motorcycle trip around the Arab world. What was the best part of it?
Oh, I mean, I spent, I guess, 4 years traveling from
4 years.
Yeah, all through North Africa, the Middle East, eventually all the way to Afghanistan by motorcycle as well.
Is it safe?
No, it was incredibly dangerous. It's not the smartest thing I've ever done. But, you know, what I got out of it is, you know, I had a master's degree in Middle East security studies, so I had an academic background in the region, but I needed to see it for myself. So I met a lot of people along the way. I gained a kind of an insight into the region that could only be acquired that way. And motorcycle travel is important because when you're in a car and you come into a town, you're immediately closed off from other people. You're in a box. But when you're on a motorcycle, there's no glass. There's nothing between you. You interact immediately. And you're also on a bike, so it's unusual when people want to talk to you. But I learned a lot of things about myself. I learned a lot of things about the region. And importantly, I made a lot of friends in the countries I was in, which eventually led me back to Libya.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question actually to both of you. So some circles in the Western world seem to set on fighting radicalism by destroying them. However, killing radicals is not a solution, of course. And they have to educate these people. Education is very important. If they were taught the true Islam, I'm talking about the radicals in Islamic world, Muslim countries, they were the true Islam, and that Allah forbids their actions, they could turn out differently. And through educating, because there's compassion, mercy, love, tolerance, and justice in Islam against people of the book and against other Muslim groups, of course. But these people talk about killing not only Christians and Jews, but also talk about the killing other Muslim people also. They fight against them. And there is a lot of bloodshed and terrorism going on and violence going on. So, and anyway, the history showed us that many times that you cannot fight and destroy wrong ideas by weapons. Ideas can only change with ideas. What do you think about education and curing this radicalism, problem of radicalism? First Nour, or you after that?
I can go first.
Well, education matters. You know, I used to be an English teacher, so of course it matters. Basically, the revolution in Syria started without weapons, you know that. So basically they were trying to change ideas, the way they live, to change the system with the power of words. But then you have to, at some point, to defend yourself. You cannot just keep dying like this. So of course, I can just measure that to the Syrian revolution. They tried to change ideas that they've been living under for the past 50 years. And they tried to teach that. And the Assad didn't want us to learn or talk about it or even discuss it. So yes.
Yeah, we know, of course. Assad family massacred people there. And
Yeah.
there is, in Islam, for example, Allah says, I seek refuge in Allah from my curse Satan. There is no compulsion in religion. It is unlawful. It's against Islam. You cannot force anybody to believe in anything.
Yeah.
But they did this, I know.
For the past.
But that was, they had a kind of Marxist mentality, isn't it? And the Ba'ath mentality.
Yes.
Hafiz Assad and his son.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So they force the people, but this is, of course, it cannot be tolerated. So this mentality has to change, and education of these people is very important.
Well,
Okay.
he prevented that for so many years, he and his
Yes.
father. So,
Yes.
yeah, basically, people, when they started this revolution, they wanted to change the way of life. They changed the ideas, this mentality that's been like for over years, to get a better chance for their children, the next generations. So, yes, basically, it
Yeah.
was all about education.
Of course, we want this bloodshed and war to stop, because everybody suffers from that.
Yeah.
Everybody should live in peace with increase in the wealth, progress in science, technology, freedom of thought, and freedom of worship, inshallah.
That's why Syrians did not carry a weapon from the first moment.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were patient
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
They suffer.
At some point, yes. At some point, you have to stop to defend yourself, at least. Yes.
And
I mean, you know, I think some of these problems with extremist groups will just be solved with time. Especially in the case of countries under authoritarianism, you know, the rule of that form of government sort of infects everything in society on multiple levels. And when people are miserable, they tend to look for something that doesn't make them miserable. And sometimes they go quite far in how far they take it, you know, and they wrap themselves in what they otherwise might not in a more free society. So I'm thinking these problems will probably sort of resolve themselves over time as post-Assad, when Syrians have more economic opportunity, more interaction with the outside world after the war is over, and a new level, you know, more foreign investment, things like this. Just a little more into modernity, where they strike the balance between their personal religious faith and, you know, an active role in society, instead of clinging to some radical ideology that gets them through life. But, you know, I mean, I'm a Christian. I'm not Muslim. I'm probably not the best person to speak on it, but based on what I've seen, I think that this is the most likely outcome. I'm not concerned about extremism in post-Assad Syria long term. Maybe a little bit short term. I'm a little concerned.
things will definitely change, because
Yes.
everybody's
Yeah.
suffering in that kind of
But
situation.
it's not going to end up
Syria,
like
I
Iran,
guess.
that's for sure.
No, Syria is a mixture of a lot of cultures and a lot
Yeah.
of people.
Yes.
There are Christians in Syria
Christian,
also,
yes,
right?
too much.
Yes,
Christian.
Yes, yes.
There are Christians
And
in Syria. And there are,
How many percent you have as Christian?
well, basically, I've never been outside Aleppo before,
Oh.
but at least you get like 10%.
10%,
in
right.
Aleppo. In Syria, I
Yeah.
haven't been outside Aleppo before.
Mm.
So, of course, since according to Quran, Christians are called people of the book, and Jews also people of the book, and Allah orders to treat them very nicely. And Allah says, argue with them only in the kindest way.
Yes.
And the monasteries, churches, synagogues, and the monasteries, Allah says, monasteries, churches, synagogues, and the mosques, where Allah's name is mentioned much, are under the protection of Allah. So everybody
Yes.
has the freedom of worship and freedom of thought. And for example, Muslim men are allowed to marry Jewish and Christian wives. We can eat their meal. We can socialize with them. This is the way it should happen, actually. And everybody has for example, the Christians can come over Turkey. The Syrians can come over here. Turks can go to Egypt. This is the way it should be, actually. But there is one must of this requirement. The unity of Muslims coming together, because there's so much enmity and hatred even among the Muslims against different sects. For example, Sunni against Shia, Hanafi against Hanbali, Maliki against this group, or that group against that group. And because of this fragmentation, division, and separation of the Muslims, these things happen. So unity, but which will embrace the Christians and Jews also, coming together with Russia, Syria, Turkey, Israel, all the Muslim countries. This will generate wealth, peace, and security in the area.
Well, in order to get that, I think it's about like the previous thought, education.
Yeah.
To be able to talk about this stuff and people come together, they need to talk, to discuss. And when you're under like tyranny and this stuff, you're not allowed to express your ideas and talk freely. So you cannot reach the other side. You cannot get to that point that you're talking about. So that's why the people are fed up. People feel this stuff and they want to express it and they want to judge things. They want to be in control of their lives. And maybe they want to solve the issues that they're having together by being able to talk about it first.
Yes.
So that's why this is what's going on.
Yeah,
I mean, because you're living in this mentality for such a long time, how can you solve these issues? I mean, you have to talk about it. You have to discuss it. You have to try so many times. But when you're under, like, kind of this regime, you can't. You just think about surviving.
Yeah, we will educate that, inshallah. For example,
Yeah.
you being in this TV program, this TV channel is being watched about 30 million people, not only in Turkey, in Europe, in the United States, Indonesia, Malaysia, in the Muslim world.
That's
So
my hope
giving
for
the
the new
messages
Syria.
and good
Yes.
people coming together and bring the resources together, this will
Exactly.
generate power. And education, through education, we will achieve this. Killing radicals is not a solution, of course.
No, no,
Yeah.
Yes,
of
so
course.
we come to the end of our show today. I know
We
you
don't
don't have
have
very long time. You have a trip now again.
Yeah.
And would you like to say something, last words for the Muslim world or all humanity?
Go on, you first.
Well, I believe that Syria will be better eventually. I don't know, I hope it's fast. Like, I hope some people will realize what's going on in Syria and do something about it. I think it's important to shed light on what's going on in Syria. That's why I'm opening a media center, and I'm trying to help journalists to portray what's going on in Syria and to let the world see what's going on. Activists will be involved too. I really think that this should, like, go everywhere. People should see. People should open their eyes and just not go to bed sleeping pretending that there's nothing. So basically, I'm hoping that this will help, and I really hope to finish this war as soon as possible and
Inshallah.
Syria be in peace. And I have a lot of hopes for the new Syria. I'm sure that's going to be better.
Inshallah.
I hope that people around the world will support the Arab Spring, and especially support Syria. You know, I'm a Christian American working with a Muslim Syrian on this. This is not about religion. This is not about anything except for the universal concept of liberty.
Humanity too.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's what I'm in it for. I want to see liberty spread, and I want people to be free to choose their own governments, to choose their own futures, to have destiny in their own hands. Around the world, not just in Syria. But Syria is very important because Syria is about more than just Syria. Syria will inspire other revolutions. And it's important for people around the world, especially those in oppressed countries, to do what they can to support Syria at this point, because their future is also in the hands of the Syrian people in some ways.
Yes.
Yeah, it is very good that you're being very hopeful. We are very hopeful also because it's not us who's going to do this, but God will do it.
Inshallah.
And definitely there will be a time, very good times are coming. And according to three divine religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, we're living in very special times. And these are the signs of these times. And a golden age with security, peace, freedom of thought is coming actually. These are like painful contractions before the birth. It's described in the Torah. There are also signs in the Bible about the end times, and also in the Hadiths and the Quran. We are living these times. So we will see, according to Muslim belief, according to the Quran, Allah says Christians are closest to Muslims. We can see you're a very sincere person, and you, for example, you went to Libya and put your life in risk to help the people who are oppressed there. This is very noble and shows this is an ayat is coming to be true. Allah says Christians are closest to Muslims. So you're a sincere believer and she's a sincere believer. So good people coming together, that will generate force, and this is going to change the world. It is very important, alliance of Abrahamic religions, Christians, Muslims, and Jews alliance, and to bring peace. We believe, and this will definitely happen.
Because
Definitely.
we believe same Allah, same God. We believe in prayer, same God. What's the why we are divided?
Yeah.
It's not.
We love the same prophets,
Yeah,
and so on,
alhamdulillah.
of course,
Yes.
coming.
Inshallah. Yes, we had very great interview with you, Nour and Matthew. Thank you very much for joining us, inshallah.
Thank you.
As I said, we come to the end of our show today. God bless you, God helps you, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much.
We hope to see you in our show again.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
to
all
give
right.
this
Yes.
message.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
In a better days, inshallah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.